Didn't we just play the Islanders? Well, we're going to do it again. This time, the Lightning go to New York to take on the Isles, who they just took down 5-3 at Amalie Arena. In today's show, we'll talk about and preview the match and why it might be the most important game of a four-game road trip to start off the month of April for the Tampa Bay Lightning.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Josh Sperber, welcoming all of you into another episode of Locked On Lightning and thanking you for making Locked On Lightning your first listen of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if your team is the Tampa Bay Lightning, this is the show for you. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. And it is almost game time. Kind of. Night game tonight. 7:30 start between the Lightning and the Islanders. The rubber match of the series. After the Islanders in Amalie Arena took game one at the 1st of February, a 3-2 overtime win for New York. Then in Amalie Arena, the Lightning jumped out to a 4-0 lead, but won by a 5-3 margin. The Lightning are 6-3-1 in their last 10 games, including the last 3 games at home, in which they all won, earning Nikita Kucherov both a NHL Star of the Week award. He was the first Star of the Week for an incredible homestand, including a 4-point effort against the Islanders on Saturday. And also, he was your bolt of the month winner. I want to thank all of you who voted, but Nikita Kucherov unsurprisingly ran away with the Bolt of the Month honor. He is someone that I'm sure the Islanders are going to have to watch out for, as they will for Andrei Vasilevsky, who is likely to start after Jonas Johansson played a great game in the victory over New York. And the Lightning look to improve on their 3-game win streak. The last 2 games on the road they have lost, but they won in a shootout contest over the Dallas Stars a couple weeks ago for their last road victory. Meanwhile, the Isles have lost each of their last 5. They're 3-4-3. with 2 of those 5 losses coming in overtime in the last 3 games, including the 5-3 loss to the Lightning coming in regulation. So the Islanders are on the downturn, it seems, though they are still in the thick of the playoff race as of March 31st. The New York Islanders, 74 points in 73 games, 1 game in hand against the New York Rangers, who have 77 points and currently own possession of the final wild card spot in the Eastern Conference. The Montreal Canadiens are right there as well. The Islanders 3 points out of the wild card race, even on games with the Canadiens at 73, but down 3 points to them, and also down 3 points with a game in hand against the New York Rangers for that last wild card spot. And it is going to be certainly a tough one for the Islanders to get back in it, but this is certainly a game that they need to win. Meanwhile, the Lightning start a 3-game road trip to begin the month of April. A 4-game road trip to begin the month of April, with beginning and ending of the trip in New York, a stop in Ottawa before going to upstate New York and facing the Buffalo Sabres, and then returning back to New York City this time to go to Madison Square Garden. So 3 different cities in New York over a 4-game road trip before a huge 4-game homestand against the Tampa Bay, pretty much the rest of the Atlantic Division in which the Tampa Bay Lightning reside. The Bolts coming off of that Saturday win against New York, in which they did not get a power play, but they allowed 1 goal on 2 penalty kill attempts, the Ryan Pulock goal that started the run for the Islanders in the middle of the 3rd period. Nikita Kucherov, 8-game point streak for the Bolts. He is certainly someone who will be key against the Islanders once again. I think the Lightning are going to want to improve in a couple of different areas. Faceoffs and power play being the most obvious, with the Lightning conceding 2 penalties, but only allowing a goal on one of them. And as I mentioned, no power play attempts. The Islanders also won 56% of the faceoffs for the game and outshot the Tampa Bay Lightning. But even in a game like that in terms of controlling the game, the pace of the game, the flow of the game might not have been the best for the Lightning, but for the first 2 periods, that was maybe the best game that the Bolts have played all season. But the entire team, including star center Brayden Point, knows that things can be different in a rematch.
We know that they're battling for a playoff spot, and they're a team that's not going to quit. They're a really hardworking team, so we knew that. I think maybe a little bit in the decision making. Trying to look for more offense sometimes rather than just making the smart play. And definitely going into the next game against these guys. That's how we're going to play.
And you make some good points. Obviously, you can't just expect the Lightning to strike twice in the same place. Lightning certainly can't come into this game, especially considering how the Islanders ended Saturday's affair. They certainly can't go into this game thinking, oh, it's just going to be another rematch, same team, same game. That's not the way the Lightning think, and the Lightning are certainly going to try and play a fuller game, more complete game against the New York Islanders. They will be without a couple of forwards. Luke Glendening and Nick Paul missed practice before the trip down up to New York on Monday for the birth of some new children. So big congratulations to the Paul and Glendening family. Certainly hope to see you guys back with the Bolts soon. But obviously adding a couple smaller members to the Lightning family is always a good thing. So we hope to see them back soon. But it could mean the Lightning are going to make some decisions. The Lightning have not made any corresponding moves to the AHL just yet. But that could be in the cards if Glendening and Paul are forced to miss the game on Tuesday against New York. I'd still probably expect them back at the latest for the weekend game, but the status are seemingly in question for the Tuesday-Thursday games against the Islanders and Ottawa Senators. But I think getting Vasilevsky back is going to be big for the Tampa Bay Lightning. But it just the third period is still going to sting, and I think that's something that the Bolts are going to remember, take to heart, watch a lot of film of that third period, because they did let the team with the 30th ranked penalty kill in the NHL get the one up on them in terms of the power play, while the Lightning have the 7th ranked penalty kill in the NHL, almost 10 percentage points higher than that of the New York Islanders, who are also 31st in power play percentage, under 13%. So that's something the Lightning are going to want back, and I really think that wiping that goal off the board changes the game completely. I don't know if the Islanders are able to get those next 2 if they don't get that first goal, that power play goal from Pulock to start the period. But the Lightning are expected to go 11-7 again. Monday's practice lines were the regular first line, Cam Atkinson bumped up to the third line in place of Nick Paul, Oliver Bjorkstrand, Yanni Gourde, Gage Gonzalez, keeping that third line the same. So lines 1 and 3 the same, and Mitchell Chaffee expected to go back in at the center spot, which would be a first for him this season. Chaffee hasn't spent a whole lot of time this year and throughout his short NHL career taking too many faceoffs. He is listed as a right wing and has a faceoff percentage of 27%, with the entirety of his wins coming this year. So Chaffee has taken a couple faceoffs here and there. I know Brandon Hagel has said earlier in the year that probably everyone has played center at least once in their life. So it shouldn't be too difficult for Chaffee to switch in there if the lines do not change. If the lines do change, I mean, it could mean a host of things. Mitchell Chaffee has been scratched the last couple of games for the Lightning as they've gone 11-7. But Paul and Glendening come back could mean a whole lot of different things for the Lightning. So some fluid lines for Tampa Bay, and a little bit of momentum just by kind of escaping with that win. And then for the rematch, they get back their starting goalie. And the Lightning have a huge road trip ahead. The majority of the games they play throughout the month of April will be played against the divisional opponents. All of the remaining games against April, or in the month of April, a total of 9, starting with tonight's contest against the Islanders, are played against Eastern Conference team. None of those teams, including the Buffalo Sabres, who the Lightning play at home and on the road over the course of this week, have yet to be eliminated from the playoffs, with one loss already against the Islanders and a tough win that certainly didn't end the way the Lightning wanted to, other than the victory. This is a huge game for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And in the next segment, we're going to talk about why it might be the most important game, maybe not even just of the road trip, but potentially of the entire month of April at the end of the regular season. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized how much I was spending on food delivery. Now, I budget smarter, cook more, and save a lot more money. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is now smoother than ever with Monarch Money, because you can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year using Monarch Money. So this is, I feel like, a type of segment that we've talked about. You know, the must-win games are something that I think everyone thinks about when they look at a schedule, whether it's for the coming week, for the coming season, or, of course, in the playoffs. And the playoffs is what the Tampa Bay Lightning are prepared for. As I mentioned in the last segment, the Bolts have one game in hand against the Toronto Maple Leafs, who currently lead the Atlantic Division with 94 points. The Lightning are tied on points with the Florida Panthers, currently in second in the Atlantic Division. Both of those teams are coming up once the Lightning return home on the road trip. And those Tuesday 8th and 9th games are 2 days that we're going to watch very closely, because on the 8th, the Maple Leafs travel to Florida to take on the Panthers in Sunrise, Florida. And then on the 9th, the Maples go to Tampa, Florida, to Amalie Arena to take on the Lightning in a game that very well could decide the division. But I am here to tell you, while that game might be the most important game, certainly at home for the Tampa Bay Lightning this season, probably is still the most important game, regardless of the fact that I'm about to say that tonight's game against the New York Islanders, to this point in the season, is the most important game that they have played. Firstly, the Lightning are getting Andrei Vasilevskiy back after a game where their backup goaltender was spectacular, making 35 saves, including a whole lot of really clutch stops against a New York Islanders team that absolutely surged forward in the third period in ways that Lightning have not seen too many times this season. It's not that often that the Lightning allow multiple goals in one period against a specific opponent. Certainly not that often that it happens in as quick succession that it did in the middle of the third period on Saturday afternoon in Amalie Arena. Some of those goals, maybe you could argue, were Johansson's fault. I certainly would argue that it was just the Lightning taking their foot off the gas, losing a little bit of focus down the stretch, and they let the Islanders back in the game. Now, regardless of the fact that there wasn't that much JoJo could do on some of those goals for the Islanders, you have to think that having Andrei Vasilevsky in net just gives your team a better chance, period. I'm not trying to slight Jonas Johansson. He played probably his best game of the season, including the shutout that he had, but definitely came up clutch in the third period. And regardless of the three next to his stat line in terms of goals allowed, he was fantastic. But, maybe Andrei Vasilevsky has a better chance of stopping some of those shots with a poor defensive performance. And it certainly wasn't that way the whole game. Before and after before the Islanders' first goal and after the Islanders' third goal, the Lightning defense was about as good as we have seen it all season long. And the Lightning are certainly going to try and channel some of that defense. And when they watch film, they are absolutely going to learn from some of the mistakes and really see what they did down the stretch. And the defense can certainly correct them. And whatever the Islanders can do in their film sessions to counteract the Lightning's preparation, Andrei Vasilevsky is going to be in there that you would expect him to make those big stops that in a few instances, Jonas Johansson couldn't. Again, JoJo with a great game, but the Lightning always in a better position with Andrei Vasilevsky in goal. And secondly, the Lightning don't want to spoil a 3-game win streak just because it has been harder for them to win games on the road. I mean, it's easy to see the home ice advantage of Amalie Arena. The Lightning have had a sellout streak, that has lasted for over 10 years now, which is especially impressive considering that I think really before maybe even 2015, not a lot of people would have recognized the level of fandom that is so prevalent in Florida. It has really become a hockey state, despite the fact that for pretty much the entire year, outdoor rinks are not possible in the state of Florida. You don't expect a state with a hot climate to be that into hockey, but this city has really embraced their Tampa Bay Lightning. The same can certainly be true about the Florida Panthers, especially with their recent success. So it's obviously tougher for the Lightning to leave home. They're 27-8-2 at home, 16-17-3 on the road. So under 500, both in regulation and including those 3 overtime losses on the road for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And that is really one of the few things that casts a pall on what has really been an incredible Lightning season. I mean, again, we can talk about it time and time again, how much the Lightning lost over the course of the offseason, how much uncertainty there was about this team, about this roster going into the season. And the Lightning have certainly overcome every single obstacle thrown at them to solidify themselves as one of the best teams in the entire NHL. And they went from a team that at the beginning of the season, we predicted that of the Atlantic Division teams that made the playoffs last year, the Lightning were the most likely to fall out. That has looked to become the Boston Bruins. It's all but certain at this point, but it doesn't appear that the Lightning are going to fall out of the playoffs. They need a catastrophic collapse to fall out of the postseason at this point. But I think it has to start on the road. And speaking of start, the Lightning have gotten off to fast starts in games. And it seems like the earlier that they win in terms of start of the homestand, start of the road trip, whatever it is, the earlier they score goals, the better that they do in the first period, that the more success that they end up having. So the Lightning need to get off to a strong start, not just in the game against the Islanders tonight, but I think a strong start, a good win to begin this road trip, to bridge that gap of the game in hand that the Lightning have against the Toronto Maple Leafs, with the Panthers playing tomorrow night as well, by the way. They've got a big game against the Habs coming up as well. The Lightning have to start off with a victory. Obviously, we're at the point of the season where wins mean a whole lot more and losses could not only be, crushing defeat, but it could also mean the end of a season, or in the Lightning's case, the end of a shot at first place. And the Lightning still have a couple of big games. Again, they have got home games against the Panthers and the Maple Leafs coming up. The 9th of April, they play the Toronto Maple Leafs, which could give the Lightning their best, which I will give the Lightning their best chance if they stay close enough in these next 4 games. If the Lightning can win, can keep fighting step for step with the Panthers and Maple Leafs, that game in the 9th could very well decide the division. But to get there on the right foot, to get there on the right path and in winning form, the Lightning need to get this win against the New York Islanders. Getting off to a fast start in the game and on the road trip as a whole usually means good things for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and that is certainly what I am trying to manifest for tonight's contest. We'll see if that happens later on tonight. Something else that could also happen is Jake Guentzel recording 1 assist. If he does that, he gets his 300th career assists, while Brayden Point, a little while ago, scored his 300th career NHL goal. Does this give the Lightning 2 more superstars? And let's just say that it does. How underappreciated are the superstars that are Brayden Point and Jake Guentzel? Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, pistachios are packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you keep feeling fuller longer. Personally, I prefer the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab-and-go snack for busy days, whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost. They're always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are delicious and a classic favorite. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch by visiting wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. That's wonderfulpistachios.com. So I think the Brayden Point milestone of 300 goals was maybe overlooked a little bit because it just happened to occur on Ryan McDonagh's big night. A goal and an assist for Guentzel at home against Utah gave him his 300th career goal. And now Guentzel, on a 3-game point streak, has 5 points in his past 3 games during the Lightning's win streak. And with 2 more goals against Utah in Utah, Pointer with 7 points, with 6 of them being goals over the last 5 games. Now, I think one of the reasons I'm starting with Brayden Point is his superstardom, the road to superstardom really began in 2020. Steven Stamkos was injured, and Brayden Point ended up replacing Stamkos in the lineup. He was still kind of working his way up those Lightning lines. Obviously, Stammer a fixture at that top line center position, and Point was just kind of moved around. The goal scoring was always there. The passing has been there, just certainly not as obvious and as prevalent for a guy like Brayden Point, who is definitely a score-first kind of player, and a guy who is just so creative, especially in close, with the way that he can position himself and get his stick to the right spot to direct that puck into the net. I've said it. If I said it once, I've said it a million times. There's no one better in tight and scoring goals than Brayden Point. And this season, he is working on a really great year, 68 games. He has a plus-minus of plus 15, which is the 4th most over the course of his Lightning tenure and the most since the Lightning won that last Stanley Cup, in large part courtesy of Brayden Point. 38 goals and 35 assists. It looked like he was on pace to shatter his career high. Now he's looking to just stay in the top 3 when it comes to goal scoring in the league. He sits behind Mitch Marner of the Maple Leafs and Leon Draisaitl, the only player with 50 goals or more on the Edmonton Oilers. And Point had been in the Rocket Richard contention for most of the season. I think with a 12-goal deficit, it's safe to take him out of that race at this point. But you don't see a lot of guys that are third-round picks and think that they're just going to rocket right up to stardom. And Brayden Point, has consistently been scoring with some of the best of them. The last 2 seasons, when he was fully healthy, he combined for almost 200 goals, missing just one game between 2022, and 2024. 51 goals in 22-23 with one fewer game played, 46 goals scored last season. And if he goes a goal a game for the rest of the year, he'll break that streak. And I think it really culminated in terms of Point being considered a superstar when he was selected as one of the first 6 players, the original 6, if you will, for Team Canada's Four Nations roster back in June. And to be among some of those guys selected, guys like Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid, who were on that team selected with him, to be instantly put right up there, had to get people to start thinking about Brayden Point. And of course, that happened in June after the Lightning had been eliminated from the playoffs, after the NHL season had been over. So there definitely were some people that might be like, is this Brayden Point guy really that good? 38 goals, 36 assists for Pointer in 68 games. One of the league leaders in power play goals, currently tied for second behind his teammate Jake Guentzel. With that marker, 28 power play points is up there as well. 7 game-winning goals, second behind only Nikita Kucherov on the Lightning, and 2 overtime goals. And he is likely to finish the season in the top 5 in terms of goals scored in the NHL, currently sitting at that 3 spot. It's safe to say that Brayden Point is a superstar. Now, that might have been established before this season. I don't know if that was entirely the case for Jake Guentzel. Maybe a bit of an overlooked move that has turned into an absolute game changer for the Tampa Bay Lightning, as Guentzel, as I've mentioned many times before, was one of the first acquisitions by Tampa Bay, flipping a middle round draft pick for Jake Guentzel to the Carolina Hurricanes on the heels of losing franchise favorite and one of the best players ever to put on a Lightning jersey in Steven Stamkos. Now, there are definitely some people who knew that Guentzel was good. I have a friend of mine who is from Carolina, big-time Hurricanes fan. Now, I can't fully reveal the context of the text because he was pissed and used some language that I'm not going to repeat on air. But one of the things that he said that was PG that I can say to you guys is, I can't believe you guys, the Lightning, got Guentzel. He's so good. Maybe took out a couple of expletives, getting angry with his favorite team for giving up Jake Guentzel, but that has certainly turned into a game changer, and in my opinion, the absolute unquestioned best move of the NHL offseason, and it looks great for Guentzel as well. Twice he was a 40-goal scorer in his tenure with the Pittsburgh Penguins, lasting about 8 years until he was a deadline deal last year in Carolina, and Guentzel, with just one game missed so far this season, has 37 goals, 3 shy of tying, 4 shy of breaking his career high against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, at this point in the season, it's easy to say that Jake Guentzel's a superstar. He was named on the Penguins quarter-century team alongside 2, no doubt, selections of Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. Jake Guentzel, part of that 2016-2017 championship team for the Penguins, was named over a long list of talented forwards who have played for the Penguins, including Phil Kessel, and maybe the most surprising name in Mario Lemieux. Now, Lemieux played most of his NHL career in the 80s and 90s, and he had 2 spectacular comeback seasons marred by surrounding injuries in the couple of years in the 2000s where he played for the Penguins. But, this is Super Mario. It was unquestioned before the arrival of Sidney Crosby. Now it's in a little doubt, but it is still a sound argument that Lemieux is not only one of the best players to play for the Pittsburgh Penguins franchise of all time, but he is definitely one of the best to play in the NHL in all time. And Jake Guentzel was picked to that quarter century team, named as one of the top 3 forwards for the Pittsburgh Penguins in the quarter century over Mario Lemieux. And that certainly isn't the only thing that is going to make Guentzel a superstar. But I think this season, after what he has had in a new team, I mean, people forget the Lightning were Jake Guentzel's 3rd team in a few months and in the calendar year of 2024. That I have seen that deadline deals and then another trade away quickly. I've seen that break players in multiple different sports. It did not break Jake Guentzel. It made him stronger. And this year, he has absolutely established himself as one of the best in the game, selected to the United States Four Nations roster, and was among the leading goal scorers in the entire Four Nations tournament against some of the best on the planet, and of course, some of the best in the NHL. Guentzel, a one-time NHL All-Star back in 2022, but he is certainly establishing himself as a bona fide superstar. And I think that it is very safe to say that if you look at that Lightning first line of Guentzel, Point, and Kucherov, you have 3 of the best players at their position, at the whole forward position, any way you slice it. Point, Guentzel are right up there with Nikita Kucherov as some of the NHL superstars and among the league's best. And that is where we're going to leave it tonight. Hopefully we'll see some great performances from Point and Guentzel against the Islanders. You can drop your picks in the comments and give us a like, subscribe, and a follow wherever you listen to your podcasts. And of course, I am Josh Sperber, giving all of you a big thank you for listening to Locked On Lightning and making Locked On Lightning your first listen every day. And now, for your second listen, make sure to check out the Locked On NHL podcast, bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And wherever you found today's podcast, thank you, and please give us a like, follow, and subscribe. We really appreciate your support because we do the show for you, the fans. So again, thank you for tuning in. Go Bolts, and have a great start to your week.